What happens when a rising star gets pushed too far on live television? When personal boundaries get crossed and the cameras keep rolling? Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history, where Grammy-nominated artist Teddy Swims found himself in a heated confrontation that nobody saw coming. This is a story about respect, boundaries, and what happens when an interview goes completely off the rails. Make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments because this one is going to leave you speechless. The Kelly Clarkson show was having another typical afternoon taping when Teddy Swims walked onto the stage. The audience erupted in applause as he settled into the guest chair, his signature warm smile lighting up the studio. Kelly, ever the professional host, greeted him with her usual enthusiasm. "Teddy, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here," Kelly said, leaning forward with genuine excitement. "Your new album has been absolutely crushing the charts. And that voice of yours, I mean, where does that even come from?" Teddy chuckled, adjusting his position in the chair. "Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. Honestly, it's been such a wild ride. The voice, I think it comes from all those years singing in church. You know, learning to really feel the music instead of just performing it. That's beautiful." Kelly nodded, her producer's voice crackling through her earpiece with the next segment cue. "Now I have to ask because our viewers are always curious about this stuff. Your transformation over the years has been pretty incredible. You've lost a significant amount of weight, and I know that's been part of your journey." The comment hung in the air for a moment. Teddy's smile flickered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. Health and wellness became really important to me, especially with touring and everything." Kelly pressed on, not noticing the subtle shift in Teddy's demeanor. "I mean, you look fantastic now. It must feel amazing to have that confidence on stage. Did you do it for your career, or was it more personal?" "It was personal," Teddy replied, his voice carrying a slight edge that the studio audience didn't quite catch yet. "Health should always be personal, you know?" "Absolutely, absolutely," Kelly agreed, but then her next question came out with less tact than intended. "But let's be honest, in this industry, image matters so much. Did your team pressure you at all? I mean, record labels can be pretty intense about these things." Teddy's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "My team has always been supportive of me as an artist and as a person, Kelly. They never made my worth conditional on my appearance." The audience sensed something shifting in the energy, though they couldn't quite put their finger on it. Kelly, perhaps feeling the tension but misreading it as nervousness, decided to dig deeper. "Right? But come on, you can be real with me here. When you were heavier, didn't you feel like maybe doors weren't opening the way they should have? I'm just saying, the music industry can be brutal about image. And now that you've transformed yourself, surely you can see the difference in how you're treated." The studio fell completely silent. Teddy stared at Kelly for a long moment, his breathing becoming slightly more pronounced. When he spoke, his voice was measured but clearly strained. "Kelly, I need you to understand something. My weight was never about my music. My talent was never tied to my size. The doors that opened, for me, opened because of my voice, my songwriting, my ability to connect with people through music, not because I fit into someone else's idea of what a musician should look like." Kelly seemed to realize she had stepped into dangerous territory, but instead of backing down, she doubled down. Of course, I'm not saying your talent changed. I'm just saying, you have to admit, the industry probably receives you differently now. It's just the reality of show business, right?" "No, Kelly, it's not just the reality," Teddy said, his voice rising slightly. "It's a toxic part of this industry that people like you perpetuate when you make comments like that. When you suggest that my success is somehow tied to my weight loss rather than the years of hard work, the struggles, the growth as an artist." The audience was now completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Kelly's producer was frantically speaking into her earpiece, but she seemed committed to pushing forward. "Teddy, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to say here. I'm actually trying to celebrate your transformation. You should be proud of what you've accomplished." "What I should be proud of," Teddy said, standing up from his chair, "is my music. What I should be proud of is the connection I make with fans who see themselves in my story. What I should be ashamed of is sitting here and letting you reduce my entire career to whether or not I lost weight." Kelly looked genuinely shocked, her media training kicking in as she tried to regain control of the situation. "Teddy, please, sit down. I think we're having a miscommunication here. I never meant to suggest that your talent was tied to your appearance. But that's exactly what you suggested," Teddy replied, his voice now carrying the full weight of his frustration. "You asked if my team pressured me. You asked if doors opened differently. You asked if I did it for my career. Every single question was about how my body affected my music instead of asking me about my music itself." The tension in the studio was palpable now. Camera operators were getting signals from the control room, but they kept rolling, knowing they were capturing something significant. Kelly's face flushed as she realized the interview was spiraling completely out of control. She attempted damage control, but her words only made things worse. Teddy, I think you're being a little sensitive here. This is daytime television. We talk about transformations all the time. I've talked about my own weight journey openly. I thought you'd appreciate the opportunity to inspire people who might be struggling with similar issues. Teddy's eyes widened in disbelief. Sensitive. Kelly, do you hear yourself right now? You're telling me I'm being sensitive for not wanting my artistic achievements overshadowed by commentary about my body. And now you're trying to frame this as some kind of inspirational segment that I should be grateful for. The audience was completely captivated now, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the feel-good afternoon television they had expected. Kelly's producer was making frantic hand gestures from behind the cameras, but Kelly seemed determined to defend her position. Look, I'm just trying to have an honest conversation here. Your fans see your transformation, they're inspired by it. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that alongside your musical success, there's everything wrong with it when you make it the focus. Teddy shot back, his southern accent becoming more pronounced as his emotions intensified. When you spend 10 minutes talking about my body and haven't asked me a single question about the songs on my album, about the stories behind them, about the collaborations, about anything that actually matters to my artistry. Kelly's defensive walls went up completely. I was getting to the music. Teddy, this is how interviews work. We talk about your life, your journey, all aspects of who you are. No, Kelly, this is how bad interviews work. Teddy replied, his voice steady but fierce. Good interviews focus on the work, the craft, the message. They don't reduce artists to their physical appearance and then gaslight them when they object to it. The word gaslight hung in the air like a bomb. Kelly's eyes flashed with anger, her own composure finally cracking. Excuse me, did you just accuse me of gaslighting you? On my own show, I've been nothing but supportive and complimentary. I've been trying to celebrate your success, and you're attacking me for it. I'm not attacking you, Kelly. I'm calling out problematic behavior. There's a difference. Teddy's voice remained calm, which seemed to frustrate Kelly even more. You've asked me if my team pressured me about my weight. You asked if doors opened differently because of how I look. You suggested my career success is tied to my physical transformation. And now, when I point out how harmful those questions are, you're telling me I'm being too sensitive and that I should be grateful. Kelly stood up from behind her desk, something she rarely did during confrontational moments. Do you know what, Teddy, maybe you are being too sensitive. Maybe you need to understand that when you're in the public eye, people are going to notice changes in your appearance. That's part of being a celebrity. And maybe you need to understand that being a celebrity doesn't mean I have to accept being reduced to my physical appearance. Teddy countered, also rising from his chair, especially not from someone who claims to support artists and their journeys. The studio audience was dead silent, watching this unprecedented exchange unfold. Some were pulling out their phones, though security typically prevented recording. During tapings, Kelly's voice took on a sharper edge. I have supported thousands of artists on this show. I've given platforms to people who needed them. Don't you dare question my commitment to supporting artists. Then act like it, Teddy said simply. Ask me about my music. Ask me about the messages in my songs. Ask me about the fans who write to me saying my music helped them through difficult times. Ask me about anything other than whether I look better now than I did before. Fine, Kelly said, her tone icy. Let's talk about your music. Let's talk about how your newfound confidence, which clearly comes partly from your physical transformation, has affected your stage presence and your ability to connect with audiences. Teddy stared at her in complete disbelief. Are you serious right now? Even when you're trying to ask about my music, you're still tying it back to my weight loss. You literally cannot help yourself. I'm trying to have a nuanced conversation about how personal growth affects artistic expression, Kelly defended, but her voice lacked conviction. No, you're trying to justify your fixation on my appearance by dressing it up as artistic analysis, Teddy replied. Personal growth and weight loss are not the same thing, Kelly. I've been growing as an artist for years. Long before I lost a single pound, my confidence on stage comes from years of performing, from connecting with audiences, from honing my craft, not from fitting into smaller clothes. Kelly's producer was now standing behind the cameras, making cutting motions across his throat, but Kelly ignored him completely. Look, I think we need to agree to disagree here, Kelly said, attempting to regain control. Let's move on to your upcoming tour dates. No, Teddy said firmly, we're not moving on. We're not agreeing to disagree. What just happened here was wrong, and you trying to sweep it under the rug and move to tour dates is exactly the problem. The audience was mesmerized. This was unlike anything they had ever witnessed on daytime television. Kelly's face was flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. Teddy, I think you need to calm down. This is getting out of hand. I am calm, Teddy replied, his voice steady. What's getting out of hand is your inability to acknowledge that your line of questioning was inappropriate and harmful. What's Getting out of hand is your refusal to understand why reducing an artist to their physical appearance is problematic. Kelly's voice rose slightly. I never reduced you to your physical appearance. I complimented your transformation while also acknowledging your talent. You spent the first 10 minutes of this interview talking about my body, Kelly. 10 minutes. You asked me if my team pressured me to lose weight. You asked me if my career benefited from my weight loss. You suggested that the industry treats me differently now. Every single question was about my appearance, not my artistry. Kelly's frustration finally boiled over completely. You know what, Teddy? I think you came on this show looking for a fight. I think you wanted to create drama, and you're twisting my words to make me look like the villain here. The accusation hit the studio like lightning. Teddy's expression shifted from frustrated to genuinely hurt, then to something much more serious. Looking for a fight, Teddy repeated slowly. Kelly, I came on your show to talk about my music, to connect with your audience, to share the stories behind my songs. I came here with nothing but respect for you and your platform, but what I found was a host who seems more interested in my pant size than my passion. That's not fair, and you know it. Kelly snapped back. I've built my career on supporting artists and celebrating their journeys. Don't you dare suggest that I don't care about music. Then prove it, Teddy challenged. Right now, ask me about my music. Ask me about the song I wrote for my grandmother before she passed. Ask me about the track that deals with addiction and recovery. Ask me about the collaboration with the gospel choir from my hometown. Ask me about anything that actually matters. Kelly paused, clearly caught off guard by the direct challenge. The silence stretched uncomfortably long, as she seemed to struggle with how to respond. I was planning to ask about those things, she finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. When Teddy pressed, after another 10 minutes of asking if I feel more confident in my body now, after asking me to give weight loss tips to your viewers, after discussing my workout routine and diet plan, the accuracy of his prediction seemed to surprise Kelly, and her silence confirmed what everyone in the studio was thinking. Teddy shook his head sadly. You know what the worst part about this is, Kelly? I actually looked up to you. I grew up listening to your music. I watched your journey in this industry, how you faced criticism about your own appearance, how you overcame it. I thought you would understand better than anyone why this conversation is so damaging. Kelly's expression softened slightly, but her defensiveness remained. I do understand, Teddy. That's why I thought you'd want to talk about overcoming those challenges. But I never asked to overcome anything. Teddy replied, his voice carrying deep emotion. My body was never a challenge to overcome. My body was never an obstacle to my music. The only challenge was an industry that made me feel like it should be. The studio audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Some were visibly moved by the raw honesty of the moment. I've spent years building my confidence as an artist, Teddy continued. Years learning to let my music speak for itself. Years trying to show people that talent comes in all shapes and sizes. And in 15 minutes, you've managed to undermine all of that by suggesting that my success is somehow tied to my physical transformation. Kelly's producer was frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, but both host and guest seemed oblivious to everything except their confrontation. I never said your success was tied to your weight loss. Kelly protested, but her voice was weaker now. You didn't have to say it directly, Teddy replied. Every question implied it. Every comment suggested it, and when I called you out on it, instead of listening and learning, you doubled down and told me I was being too sensitive. Kelly tried one last time to regain control. Teddy, I think we both got a little heated here. Why don't we take a breath and start over? I'd love to hear about your new album. Teddy looked at her for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. No, Kelly, I don't think we can start over. Because starting over would mean pretending this conversation didn't happen. It would mean pretending that what you did was okay. And it's not okay. He began removing his microphone, his movements deliberate and calm. What are you doing? Kelly asked, genuine alarm in her voice. I'm leaving, Teddy said simply. I came here to share my music with your audience, but instead I got interrogated about my body. I came here to talk about my art, but instead I had to defend my worth as a human being. I came here with respect, but I'm leaving with disappointment. Kelly stood up, panic evident in her voice. Teddy, please don't do this. We can fix this. We can edit this segment, start fresh. Teddy paused, looking directly at her. Kelly, the fact that your first instinct is to edit this out, instead of learning from it, tells me everything I need to know. This isn't about fixing a bad segment. This is about understanding why artists deserve better. He handed his microphone to a stunned audio technician and looked back at Kelly one final time. I hope someday you understand that when you have a platform like this, you have a responsibility to use it thoughtfully. Artists trust you with their stories, their vulnerabilities, their dreams. That trust is sacred, and today you broke it. The studio was dead silent as Teddy walked toward the exit. Kelly called after him, her voice desperate. Teddy, please, let's talk about this off camera. Don't leave like this. He stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back to face her, the audience, and the cameras. "Kelly, I've said everything I need to say. My music speaks for itself, my talent speaks for itself, and my integrity speaks for itself. I don't need to justify any of those things to anyone, especially not on a show that seems more interested in my before and after photos than my before and after songs." With that, Teddy Swims walked off the Kelly Clarkson show, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a speechless host, and one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. The cameras kept rolling as Kelly stood frozen behind her desk, the weight of what had just happened slowly sinking in. The audience remained silent, processing the raw honesty they had just witnessed. What do you think about Teddy's decision to walk off? Was he right to take a stand, or should he have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more stories that reveal what really happens. When the cameras are rolling, sometimes the most powerful moments happen when someone decides they've had enough and chooses to stand up for what they believe in, even when it costs them.